All right, so let's start with the big story that we are tracking in WION at this hour, where India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S Jaishankar is on a two-day trip to Russia. While addressing the Primakov Institute of World Economy and International Relations, India's Foreign Minister touched upon a number of issues with respect to the changing world dynamics. Listen in.
Both the, I would say, near region and the little bit beyond region have a very strong interest in ensuring, that we get an outcome in Afghanistan, which is both good for Afghanistan and which is good for the region. And they are not different. Because I can tell you what is good for Afghanistan will automatically be good for the region. Now, whether we have the wisdom to do it, whether we, have the clarity of thinking to do it, I think that is very much up to our generation. So, at least from my end, I can say we are quite clear what the challenges are. But, in diplomacy and in international relations, you never take anything for granted. So you have to keep working at it, keep building partnerships, keep making people understand what are the challenges and what could be the consequences of that. Regional issues like Afghanistan and Middle East have seen convergence previously that may be mutually beneficial to continue. As an observer state, India is also interested in deepening its engagement with Russia, the chair of the Arctic Council on Arctic issues. Russia has always been a dependable defense partner of India. The enormous experience of past cooperation is today being applied to a more contemporary requirement, including the Make in India program. This transition can accommodate the interests of both sides and even lead to new areas of military technical collaboration. The BrahMos example could well be a precursor of what is to come. This needs to be accompanied by a greater focus on military to military ties, including in the maritime domain. The establishment of the 2+2 mechanism, which was recently agreed to between the Prime Minister and President Putin, promises to provide a new vitality. On the economic side, there is a growing realization of the importance of resilient and reliable supply chains. Collaboration can surely add to the options before the world, as we have already seen in the case of vaccines.
All right, so that was India's Foreign Minister S Jaishankar there. He's spoken on a whole host of different issues. And to put all of this in perspective, we are joined in by WION Siddhant, who's joining us live in this broadcast. Good morning to you, Siddhant. Now, we heard India's Foreign Minister S Jaishankar there touch upon several key issues that India, of course, is looking forward as a part of its foreign policy. And one of the key issues that he spoke about was on Afghanistan, where he said what is good for Afghanistan is going to be good for the larger region at large, reiterating that what happens in Afghanistan will have a ripple effect in the neighborhood. And, he also touched upon how India would want to contribute in the peace process in Afghanistan. What more do we know about this?
Well, this visit, which is still underway, the key focus remains on Afghanistan. In fact, the Indian External Affairs Minister and the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov will be holding meeting at around 1:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time. It is expected to last for 1 to 2 hours, and thereafter we do expect a press conference. Afghanistan undoubtedly is the top focus given the deteriorating situation, whether it is in Tehran or in Moscow. And we saw that speech by the Indian External Affairs Minister. But also this visit is about the larger relationship. This relationship, while it is much celebrated, it is seen through the rose-tinted glasses of Soviet Union. It has its own share of issues as well. And interestingly, yesterday, when the Indian External Affairs Minister spoke for almost 1 hour, he did mention about those issues, but in a very diplomatic manner. He said that there should be an understanding about the sensitivities regarding critical allies. Now, this clearly messages to Moscow that when it comes to Beijing and New Delhi, well, we are not asking you to choose, but you need to understand that Beijing and New Delhi are not going to come together ever again. And we know that there is a kind of dilemma in Moscow regarding Beijing and New Delhi. Both are allies, both are good friends, and Russia can't choose one over another. So that remains a critical issue. We know that Russia has been very hesitant about the Indo-Pacific concept that has been talked about New Delhi. And interestingly, yesterday, when the Indian External Affairs Minister gave that speech, he referred to Russia as a Euro-Pacific power, and that perhaps is the most significant part for me, mentioning Russia is not only a European country but also a Pacific country, and that is a message by New Delhi that it's high time they should also join into the league of the Indo-Pacific countries.
Absolutely, that's an important point that you raised about, one of the key issues that the Indian Foreign Minister focused was on the issue of China, and one statement that he made is that China did not honor border pacts with India. How is Beijing going to be looking at S Jaishankar making this point in Russia?
Well, saying things from Delhi is different from saying things from Moscow, and we all know what he said. He said the differences which have occurred because the Chinese haven't been following the pacts signed in 1990s regarding build-up at the line of actual control. The build-up continues, and increasingly we know that the distance between Beijing and New Delhi have been increasing. Now, what role Moscow can play is something that everyone is keenly watching, and not that Moscow hasn't played a role. It looks like it has. Perhaps later we will get to know, not today, maybe 10 years from now, because remember last year, the Indian External Affairs Minister and the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi met there, and there was a 5-point consensus on diffusing the crisis on the sidelines of the SCO Foreign Ministers meeting, and it could haven't happened without the blessings of the Russians. But largely we know that it is a tricky situation as of now for Russia, but New Delhi has sent a message that when it comes to Beijing, it is going to take a strong stance because of the provocative behavior by Beijing. It's up to Moscow that it tells the Chinese that they should not indulge in such activity. Perhaps we'll get to know more about the Chinese stance by Moscow later today, when there will be a joint press conference by the Russians. Interestingly, I think one of the most standout thing of this entire visit is that the Indian External Affairs Minister is landing into Georgia from Moscow, and that is significant in terms of, we know that the relationship between Georgia and Russia hasn't been doing very well. We know that there was a brief war in 2008 as well between the two countries.
Absolutely, indeed. That is going to be a part of a visit that we'll be watching very closely. Thank you very much indeed, Siddhant, for joining us and getting us all those updates then. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.